Welcome to The Route to Revenue, two entrepreneurs sharing the path to curbside cash flow. I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. We're both founders of two successful recurring revenue businesses in the home services industry. And we've built our companies from startup to profitable and scalable operations.
This is the show for entrepreneurs serious about building sustainable home service businesses. Whether you're starting out, scaling up, or ready to move beyond trading time for money, we share proven strategies for creating predictable monthly revenue streams.
And while our expertise comes from the bin cleaning industry, the systems and principles we discuss work for any recurring revenue home service. Think lawn care, pest control, pool maintenance, and beyond.
Each episode, we break down real-world strategies for customer acquisition, retention, operational efficiency, and building systems that generate consistent income while you step back from daily operations.
Are you ready to transform your home service businesses from a demanding job into a profitable asset? This is The Route to Revenue.
Welcome back to The Route to Revenue. This is part 2 of our conversation on the numbers behind a recurring revenue home service business. In part 1, we broke down the foundation, monthly recurring revenue, customer acquisition cost, and how to start understanding what it really costs to bring in a new subscriber. Today, we're picking up right where we left off and getting into the numbers that can make or break your growth. Churn, lifetime value, retention, referrals, and how to know whether your marketing is actually creating profitable, long-term customers. Let's get back into the conversation.
So, Mike, do you want to explain what churn is for us?
Yeah, churn is the percentage of your customers or of your customer base that cancels each month. It's super important to track, and if you're not tracking it, then you could be heading down the wrong path. You could be having to recreate the wheel over and over again. More importantly, I would argue that it lets you know that you're definitely doing something wrong in your business operationally. Most people that subscribe to a service, contrary to what we sometimes want to think, don't want to sign up and cancel the next month. They some may, but at the end of the day, they want to solve a problem, and they want to solve it every month or every quarter or every year. They don't want to, I'll solve it now and then I'll forget about it and then re-sign up. So churn is important because ultimately, if you're looking at a 2% monthly churn, you're going to lose 1 in 5 customers every year. Basically, you're looking at a 22% annual churn. If it's 4%, go ahead.
Let's just talk about this because and I was guilty of this at first as well. Okay. So let's say that, and let's go back to when you and I had 400 clients. Okay. And through the summer, there'd be no cancellations. And then in the fall, there'd be, a couple a month. And wintertime, there'd be another 1 or 2. And it was people moving or, hey, I don't need the service for the winter or something like that. And most of them would come back in the spring. But when we talk about this, one of the things that we don't think about is what happens. What would you call, and voluntary churn is when they move, there's something happens and they make the choice that they're going to go away, whether it's over price or a service issue or something like that. Involuntary churn is what I think we don't talk about in this industry enough. And it's sad because it's actually the most preventable. And I know for us, it's actually, it's probably 50% of our churn. And that is like a declined card, an expired card, a failed, something like that.
Basically,
a phone number changes hold of them, and then trash day changes, and suddenly now we don't have a client anymore. That involuntary churn is a silent killer. So,
agreed.
Enough of my tangent on that. So, do you want to walk us through what a monthly churn rate is? how we calculate that?
Yeah. So if we took that example of 400 customers that we've kind of been talking about all day, and we end up losing 8 people, right? So we this month or last month we look and 8 people left for whatever reason. And you divide that by your total number of customers. So 8 divided by 400 is a 2% monthly churn. Now that one, if you extrapolate that over the year, again, it's 2% a month. So that would be 22 to 24% a year, ultimately. So, those 8 cancellations turn into, say, 96 cancellations for the entire year. Well, that's damn near a quarter of your business or a quarter of your customers. So Warlow, as we cite a couple other things from his book, he cites a benchmark of 2 to 4 monthly churn as typical for a subscription business. I don't think that's what our business is. At least it's not for me. I don't know about you, for Ben, but I think what they're talking about potentially is like the software subscription business, or, I don't know. I don't know what other, I lean towards the software subscription because I'm kind of guilty of it. I need to convert a PDF. What do? I subscribe to a PDF converter, and then next month I don't need to do it. And I go, oh crap, I don't need to spend money on this converting a PDF until I need to use it again. So I think in there, they definitely are a highly churned business. But, the math is tough, right? At that one, we're losing 22% of our business. And he talks about at a 4% monthly churn, you're losing nearly half of your customer base every year. You're not growing in the summertime. You're just running just to basically at the end of the year stand still, is what he talks about. So it's important. Now, if we can get that down to, say, a 12% or a 10% or 7%, now we're down, at 1%, we're at 11% annual churn. At 6, you'd be at a, 5%. I'm sorry, at a 0.5%, which would be 6% a year of churn. You'd be at 5% annual churn overall. So it'd be a great thing at that point. You're not fighting to stay where you're at. You're actually growing the business.
Yeah, and I mean, So I don't know about for you, Mike, but for us, now that we've scaled a little bit, I would say we have about an 8% card failure rate. So almost 1 in every 10 clients, we're going to have a card fail. And then
over the year or over the month?
Just in general, 1 in every 10.
Okay.
So as an example, if we did no, that's probably a little high. I guess it's 1 in 5.
Sounds high.
Yeah. 1 in 5. So, I mean, if you think about that at 1
in 5 or 1 in 20? Because that made it high. That made it a higher percentage.
No, 1 in 20. Excuse me. See this? I'm just all over the place.
Dang.
Okay.
Going a long way for that.
I should look at my actual numbers. And guys, so that Mike and I talked about it, and we decided not to give actual numbers on this and just to give examples, because we think that we can give examples that more closely fit our viewers' customer base. And so,
well, and you can get, as just evidence there, you can get stuck in the numbers too.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it gets, you get keyed in on one number and then you're not hearing the next 3 sentences and whatnot. So,
yep. So, yeah. But anyway, so, I mean, there's a certain amount, we'll call it 1 in 20 that, so if we do 100, that's 100 stops, we have 5 cards that we have to go and get.
Mm-hmm.
And of those, we get about 3/4 of those to update their card and pay their bill within the week.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets more difficult. And so there's a certain amount of churn that happens that we can't do anything about. And maybe it's that they're quiet quitting us. I don't know. We talked about that in another episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, go ahead, Mike. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the aerial view of churn rate. It's important to know that number, because again, it can give you that, I alluded to it in the beginning. It can give you an idea of how your service is perceived to clients as well. So if that churn rate starts to go higher and higher and higher, now I will say at various times the churn rate's been higher or lower depending on different things. So, as gas prices went up, we started to see some more cancels. Winter comes along, we start to see more cancels. Nowadays, to see a cancel is pretty rare. Summertime, nobody wants to cancel. So, next concept is LTV, or the lifetime value. So the lifetime value basically is what a single subscriber is worth to your business over the entire time that they stay with you. It's a number that'll tell you how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer and still make money. So if we take that PDF company, it's important for them to know, are the people staying with us for 6 months, 8 months, a year? In our businesses, I've got some of my people that signed up the first week. I still have them as customers, and that was almost 8 years ago. So, what is that? How do we determine that? I will say that one's a little bit more difficult. So, the benefit of introducing the concept is that I get to throw it to you, Ben.
Okay. So Mike, I'm gonna let our listeners in on. So yesterday, Mike and I were on the phone, and my office is just like, it's right next to Lisa's, and there's a adjoining door, and I had Mike on speaker because I was clickety clacking on the computer, to use a Mike Walker term, and Lisa overheard our conversation, and so she did a little looking, and I think she told us both that if we can keep that client for a year, then they stay with us forever, it seems like. That the magic thing is keeping them for a year. The ones that don't stay for the year, they come and go, and it is what it is. And you're going to have a certain amount of that. But the ones that stay at least a year just stay. So we're going to use our same example, $35 a month, okay? Now, here we need a gross margin. So this is, again, where we need to know what the direct service cost is. And so that's not all of your overhead. That is literally, what does it cost you to perform that service? In our case, it's going to be labor, fuel, water, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so let's say that you run a gross margin of 65%. Okay. And let's say that your churn rate, and we're using a high rate for our business. I can tell you that our churn rate is less than 1%, but we're going to say that a monthly churn rate of 2% in this example. Okay. So we're going to take our monthly recurring revenue. We're going to times that by our gross margin. So in our example, it's 35 times 0.65. Then we're going to divide that by our monthly churn rate. So divided by, in our example of 2%, divided by 0.02. That means that a monthly client is worth $1,137.50 at a 2% churn rate. Okay?
In profit. Well, in profit over, the cost to perform the actual service, not the entire profit, but
that's their value to you. That is what they're worth to you. Which, if you think about it, if you sold that same client and you just charged them the 35% of that it costs to do the service, then they're worth nothing to you. If you're just servicing them for your cost, they're not worth anything. So
if we just take that,
let's take that same thing and let's talk about what happens if we reduce our churn to 1%. If we cut it in half, then we take that same $35, we times it by the same 0.65. We divide that by 0.01, and now that client is worth $2,275.
$2,275.
Yep. It basically doubles the value of every client that you acquire with no new marketing spend, no price increase, just better retention. So I'm going to point back to another episode here, and I think it's really important that we do, and it's the episode that I got called out on. So if you're out there finding reasons to fire customers, to fire clients, and one of those reasons is, oh, it's too far to drive, you're costing yourself money.
Yeah, that may have struck home.
I had to do it. Sorry, Chris, I had to do it. So, don't invent reasons to fire clients, guys. So anyway, yeah, it's keeping a client is much cheaper and much better than going and getting another one. Someone has a problem with a service, and Mike, you and I have talked about this. Someone has a problem with a service.
Bend over backwards, solve it.
Bend over backwards, give them the world, because keeping a customer is easier and cheaper, okay? And retention is marketing. And if you wanted to, you could say, oh, that money that I spent to keep them happy, that's marketing. I'm okay with that.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, okay. So what do we do with all of this, Mike? I mean, we've got all these numbers.
Yeah. I mean, now we've got the numbers. We want to take a look at what that's going to tell you. So, basically when you look at it, and if you're, if we look at these above numbers and we say, well, at 2% or a higher monthly churn, that's giving us a lower loan to value versus the client acquisition cost or customer acquisition cost ratio tells you that either your CAC, your cost of acquiring that client, is too high, your marketing's inefficient effectively, or your churn is too high, which means customers aren't staying long enough, and that your margins then are too thin. You're undercharging. So you may need to raise the rates. You may need to, fix your marketing. Maybe you're spending marketing on stuff that's just not working. And that gets into, where is your marketing coming? Where are your signups coming from? And we'll talk about that in a future episode as well. Not to tease anyone, but we've got our very own Lisa Magee coming on here in a couple episodes to discuss where our marketing is coming from. If you've got a high loan to value, I'm sorry, not loan to value. I came from the mortgage industry.
Yeah, your real estate days are coming back.
Lifetime value versus client acquisition cost ratio. It tells you that you've got room to invest more in acquisition. So basically, you're leaving growth on the table. You're efficient enough. You've got enough money coming in. Let's go out and buy more clients, either through an acquisition or let's spend more on marketing because what you're doing is working, type of deal.
So let's talk about this. So how do we figure this ratio? So if we take our lifetime value from our example, and let's use $1,137.50, and our customer acquisition cost we said was $40. Okay. Then we're going to take that $1,137.50 and we're going to divide it by 40. And that gives us 28.4 to 1. Okay. So what Mike's been talking about is, if a ratio is below 3 to 1, now I would argue that that Warlow was writing his book for software companies. And I would argue that a 3 to 1 ratio in the home service industry, you're probably not doing great. And that was what Mike was talking about. I don't know that you necessarily need to be at 20 to 1, although we are higher than that. I think, the best subscription businesses in the world, and we're talking about, again, software, Warlow says are at 8 to 1 or higher. Okay.
I think we're a little different, right? I mean, they are getting more of a service. They're seeing it. They're feeling it in their, in their every time they go out to their bins or every time they see their lawn mowed. They are seeing that benefit, and frankly, the alternative is that they are going to do it. And I guess the same could be said to some extent for software companies, um, but at the end of the day, we really only care about home service businesses. So, so
That's who we're trying to help. That's for
yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Okay. So what does good marketing actually look like? Well, it's not about getting the most clicks or the most calls. It's about acquiring the right clients. We want clients who stay and pay and refer. And we need to do that at a cost that makes your lifetime value to customer acquisition cost, or LTV to CAC ratio, healthy. Okay. And I would make this argument, and I don't think I can do this strongly enough. Invest in retention first. Keeping a customer is so much easier. Every improvement in churn.
It doesn't cost you zero to keep them, but it certainly costs you a lot less than going out, finding them and going out there and servicing them the first time, finding out their nuances and then dealing with them. At some point you got to deal with everybody's nuances. It's easier to deal with the nuances you already have, as a client. So,
yeah.
absolutely.
So know your CAC, and you got to do that before you do anything else. Because if you don't know what a customer costs you, you don't know if you can afford to grow. I mean, and I'll use this as an example. So during the winter, we basically shut our marketing off. Sometimes we shut it off completely because there's no sense in us spending a ton of money to gain a client. And it takes so much money during the winter to gain a client through our traditional advertising methods that we just shut them off and we wait. And then we dump the money in during the summer when it's cheaper to get a client. So, obviously a referral has a lower customer acquisition cost. Mike, do you do a referral bonus?
We do. And it's nominal. We do $10 to the referrer and $10 to the referee. We call it a spiff because it's Spiffybin. Pretty clever, right? But I wanted to benefit both parties. I will say that that's a small portion. It used to be higher, and I don't know necessarily. I mean, maybe it's just that I don't hear it as much, and that's totally true because in the past I used to take every call, every sign up, I dealt with everything, right? But now we've got folks that do that. So, it may or may not be less. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's just a little something, kind of an incentive. Most people are like, I said, don't forget, we give you 10, we'll give 10 to both sides. And they're like, oh, I love you guys. You guys are the best. I wouldn't even want to do it. I don't even need it or whatever. So most people, that may not be a driver, but for some people it is a driver. I had one guy, Josh is his name. And, he was kind of influential in his neighborhood, whatever that means. And he must be the most social at the pool. I'm not sure, but
the best block parties.
He got 24 signups like over like a 3-month period. So he had $240 in credit. And so he didn't pay for a cleaning for I think he was on the quarterly plan. So for 2 years, he didn't pay for a cleaning. So, I mean, some people it works. And you know what? I'm fine with that. That was good because ultimately it cost me $20 to acquire that client. But that client arguably is going to stay longer because, they were an easy sale. They know that they got a referral from a good person, I guess. So, whatever. They're certainly not your best way to business. It's just another fishing pole in the water is the way I look at it.
Yeah. Okay. So I know this is going to get cut into 2 episodes, no doubt in my mind. But here's what I want to do. I want to give an action step, and then we'll let you close us out. Okay, Mike? So this week for our action step, calculate your customer acquisition cost for last month. take everything that you spend on marketing, ads, postcards, door hangers, yard signs, your own time, if you paid someone, all of it, referral payouts that like we just talked about with Mike, that needs to be part of his marketing budget. And divide that by the number of new subscribers that you actually activated. Write that number down, then go read The Automatic Customer by John Warlow. It was written for software companies, but it describes your business exactly, and it will change how you think about growth permanently.
Love it. Absolutely. I think if you do those steps, I mean, the book was key. Both Ben and I don't even think we knew. Well, I know I didn't know you and you didn't know me at the time. And when we met, and later on in discussions, because I don't read all that many books, and I don't sit down. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. What books are you reading? But later on, we did talk about it, and that did become one of the books. That and Profit First were the two main ones that both of us referenced. So, but that is a good book. It really, really gets you thinking, and a lot of it you kind of already know, but that why this is a good business to have the recurring revenue part of it. But you don't necessarily know why. The why that, what money's coming in type of thing, but you don't know what that does. And one of the steps that we did skip that is super important in there is when we go to selling the business. If we ever have an exit plan, subscription businesses will generate typically a higher number based on your MRR. And it's easier to calculate because it's a little bit more not guaranteed. I don't want to say nothing's guaranteed, but it is more, it's going to happen. I don't, what am I trying to say, Ben? Basically it's more in line with, every month you can almost say that this is the amount of money coming in. So it becomes easier for somebody to value that company higher than if it's just the plumber that is waiting on the phone to ring.
Well,
so.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier because they don't have to go get new customers and they don't have to rely on, my business, I could not market at all and the money continues to come in. And so that is much different than most home service businesses that don't have some sort of recurring revenue model built in.
Agreed.
Okay.
So, awesome. Thanks so much for listening, folks. We appreciate your time. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, subscribe. We do have a website that we have not done a good enough job marketing. It is called The Root. Oh, go ahead.
The route to revenue.com. And I don't think we've done a good enough job marketing. And I think that we need to probably do a better job of updating it as well. So we'll work on both of those.
Excellent.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, Ben, that's a wrap on another episode of The Route to Revenue. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would hit like, subscribe, and leave us old guys a comment about what we did well. And if we did anything wrong, can it and keep it to yourself.
If today's strategy sparked some ideas for your business, don't keep them to yourself. Share this episode with a fellow entrepreneur who could benefit from these insights.
Remember, building a recurring revenue business, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Take one actionable step from today's discussion and implement it in your business this week.
Want to connect with us between episodes? Find us on Facebook or at our website. We'd love to hear how you're applying these concepts in your own home service business.
And until next time, keep building those recurring revenue streams and stay on the route to revenue.
The route to revenue.
Nice, Ben.